what's coming here, but you understand what I'm saying. We want to be up to the challenge of becoming the type of person Yahweh wants to live with forever. We want to be up to the challenge of transforming from what we are into what he is, right? Transforming the image of Yeshua. And so we've done lots of things as far as dealing with this, the inside, us, and our relationships in these up to the challenges. Actually, we did one on money and finances one time as well. And so what I thought would be good to do today, mostly because I was just so busy I didn't prepare anything, I thought it'd be really useful, especially for those of you that have never counseled, to kind of get an idea of what that's like. Not that you need to necessarily air all your stuff out here in public, but I thought it'd be good to have a really kind of big group therapy session, all right? And so I want to open up the microphone floor, so to speak, and you don't have to give details, okay? But I want to know, what is it we struggle with? What are we struggling with? I know you're not struggling with, like, the basic mechanics of Torah. It's not a struggle to keep the Sabbath. It's not a struggle to keep the feast. It's not a struggle to eat right. It's not a struggle to, tithe. It's a struggle not having your finances right. It's a struggle when family members want you to do certain things. Those are the struggles. Those are the things that I'm talking about, counseling about. How do I deal with this emotional challenge? My children won't talk to me. I didn't go to their wedding or whatever. You understand what I'm saying? Because the mechanics of Torah are not that hard. But being in a world that's not his, man, that's a good name for a teaching. Okay? And that is the name of a teaching, right? Because we live in a world that's not his right now. Okay? So we need to, and I think the teaching was called Peace in a World Not His. And so, is that it? Right? Was it peace? Yes. I don't know. I put these out. You guys listen to them. You know better than me. So the main thing is that since we're in that space, I want to be able to help you, and then by extension, all of the other thousands of people that have the same issues. Because basically the issues we struggle with are not unique. They're common to most people. All right? And we do struggle. And we struggle mostly because we have not made the necessary leap. Okay? If you remember, I'll explain what that is in here in a second, or as by this way of explaining it. If you remember the teaching I did on developing the character of Yeshua, and in there I mentioned, no, sorry, not that one, the unity and division in the body. Okay, unity and division in the body. And in that teaching, I talked about these paradigm shifts, these major shifts in how we see the world and how we think and what things are. And the last one, there were 4, was the growth from child into a mature adult. And I'm not picking on anybody, myself included. This is where we mostly struggle in understanding what a true adult from a scriptural point of view should look like, okay? I just spent 2 hours with our teenagers, and I think they're really enjoying the class. And one of the things that I'm teaching them and talking to them about is this transition from child to adult. Maybe I should have done that in here for everybody. They're teenagers. You know what I think? I think that the book doesn't actually do it justice. It refers to Israel as what? The children of Israel. I don't think that's actually probably a good description at this point. I think we're the teenagers of Israel. Because we don't listen. That's more the teenagers and the children. We think we're adults, but we're not. We think we're kids, but we're not. We're children. And so I told them in their class, not today, but when we first started class this morning, I said, you guys are weird. Now, everybody is weird in some way. I said, but you guys are weird. And the reason you're weird is because you're really in this weird or strange place called teenager. Teenager is not anything. It's an in-between some things. I mean, a teenager isn't a thing. Matter of fact, it's an invention of like the post-World War II. It didn't used to exist. You went from a child to an adult. There wasn't a teenager. You went right from child to getting out there and plowing the field and tending the flock and doing all this other stuff that you did at 13, years old or younger. Some of you remember or have, relatives who will tell you how they used to drive a tractor when they were 10 years old, 11 years old. Okay? And you're thinking, I would never be able to put my 9-year-old on a tractor. My 9-year-old can't even handle a spoon. So we've really degenerated in our maturing process. Or I should say we've greatly retarded. I don't mean like as in a medical thing. I'm saying as in it's slowed down, okay? To retard something is to slow it down, okay? And we've slowed down our growth process in terms of our maturing process, as I really should say. And so teenagers, they want to be adults. So that's like us, right? We want to be adults. And at the same time, teenagers remember what it's like to be a child. They want to do that sometimes too. And so do you. The problem is, and we discussed this in that class, the primary difference between a child and an adult is responsibility. As a child, you might have a little bit of responsibility over your room or toys or some other thing. But really, who's mostly responsible for everything in your life? Your parents. Really. Or maybe an older sibling. Maybe you have a lot of children in your family, and there's an older sibling that's doing a lot of the watching over you. You don't have a whole lot of responsibility. And then we have the other side of the spectrum, the adult, right? The adult should, I have to word it this way, sadly, should have 100% responsibility for every aspect of their life, okay? Everything falls on you. Of course, you deflect that by excuses, complaining, blaming, and all these other wonderful tools we have in our toolbox. So instead of owning, we redirect all that. Well, if I wasn't raised this way, and if this didn't happen to me in my life, and I wasn't born over here, and if my parents weren't this way, and if I had a better teacher in school, or this hadn't happened in my career, or whatever. We've got an endless list of reasons. Excuses, really, not really reasons. Things to blame for why you're where you are. You know why you're where you are? You know why? Because you're exactly where every thought and every action and every choice has brought you. You are exactly where your choices have taken you. Oh, no, it's because of this and that. Look, I don't care what horrendous thing happened to you when you were 8. You could have made different choices when you were 15, 18, 20, 25, whatever. Oh, sure, that whatever happened to you, I'm not diminishing, may have been, just the most horrifying, tragic, traumatic thing. But lots of people have gone through those kind of things. Actually, it's scary and sad, the percentage of people that have gone through those kind of things. And I counsel that every day. Yet some of them found a way to leave the past in the past and then create a new present and a new future. I did a physical example of this for some people I counseled lately. I had some things on the table. I think I had like a tissue box and a pile of papers and a sanitary cream thing, like one of those hand sanitizer bottles and whatever. And I said, look, okay, let's look at, I'll do this on here even, okay? Let's say this is the past, all right? So I'll have that where you can still see it on the thing. And then my cell phone, I'll put that in the middle here. That's the present, all right? And that's going to slide off. And this water bottle, that's the future. I don't think I can hold all these things, okay? But we'll just have them up here for right now. Okay, here's the problem. Okay, we'll just picture in between here is the present, all right? Where my hand is. All right, here's your past. Here's your future. Here's the problem. This is the terrible thing that happened in your past. Okay, so it happened back here. And then as your present, all right, let's put the water bottle down for a second. Here's the present. As the present moved from when it happened and moved forward, guess what you brought with you? You brought that trauma with you. It should have been over here. It happened over here. Why are we still bringing it over here? Why are you allowing that terrible thing to still hurt you? and still ruin your life. Well, you don't understand. It ruined my life. Yeah, back then. And for a period of time, I'm sure, going forward. But at some point, it needs to stop and stay somewhere, and you keep moving. And that's where we have to get to that forgiveness thing, where you release the negative, emotional, part of that event. And that allows it to stop moving with you. Does this make any sense? I am not in any way diminishing what happened to you. Okay? And it doesn't have to be like, you were abused and raped by your parents, or you were beat whatever by a parent or a brother or a cousin or this or that. It could have been some horrible thing that happened when you first started school, and it happened as a teenager. It could have been happening with your first jobs and career. Some sort of tragic, horrible thing, at least to you it was, and it may have been or not, created this freezing of time in one aspect or more of your life. And then as you moved forward, that thing just floated along with you. And so you're really still back here in a lot of ways, because that's when this happened, and you're bringing it with you. And so guess what? As you head towards the future, your future is not going to look a whole lot different than the past, because you're bringing this thing with you, and this is your limiter. This is the thing that's stopping you from getting to where you want to go in a lot of areas of your life, because this is where you became convinced, I'm no good. I'm unworthy. I deserve what happened to me. It was my fault. I'm worthy of that kind of abuse. Nobody wants me. I'm not lovable. All these horribly stupid things. I'm sorry to say it that way, but nobody should talk to themselves that way. I understand where it came from. I understand that others told you, you did this to yourself. You brought this on yourself. You whatever. Why do you listen? You need to stop listening to the wrong voices. Okay? You have to stop listening. Why do you because I have people tell me all the time how upset they are. I had one lady call me up. She was absolutely bawling, crying, upset, because somebody she never met on Facebook, who she barely knows on Facebook, told her about her divorce and how she was wrong and she should never got divorced and now she's in sin and all. I said, whoa. What's your relationship to this person? Well, I know them on Facebook. What's their expertise in this area? Well, I don't know. So why does it bother you? Because we are so susceptible to the influence of other people, especially if, you need to own this part, if it feeds into something you already wanted to believe. If you wanted to believe you were in sin because of your divorce, if you wanted to believe you're unworthy of love, if you wanted to believe these things, not from the beginning before the tragedy, but after the tragedy, you convinced yourself, then it doesn't take much for anybody to feed into that and to reinforce that wrong belief. You understand what I'm saying? John 8, Yeshua says, and you shall have a relationship with the truth. And that relationship with truth shall make you free. Well, are you going to keep getting that truth from a bunch of people that really don't know anything and don't love you anyway and don't even hardly know you? Or are you going to start getting that truth from people that actually know what they're talking about, are trained to do what they do, and actually love you? All right? And that truth is that you are worthy of the kingdom. You are worthy of forever. Clap. And you're thinking, no, Yahweh made a mistake. Yahweh doesn't make mistakes. Well, Rabbi, how do you know I'm worthy? Because you're here. I don't know how else. I don't need any other measuring stick. He didn't call you, pop your bubble, open your eyes, open your ears, open your heart, because you're not worthy. You might not see it. I'll go with his eyes more than your eyes every day of the week. And you need to do the same thing. Stop going with your eyes, go with his eyes. He knows the true you inside. He knows your value. And he values you enough, think about it, to give you a potential eternity with him. How much is that to value, to care enough and value you enough to want to spend forever with you? Look, this forever thing is not what you ever taught in church and everything else. Hold on. It's not like a checklist. Hey, if you do all of this stuff, he has to let you in. Do we all understand that? The Creator, the King, the Almighty, has a plan. It's his plan. It's about him. Everything is about him. Do we all understand that? And for whatever reason, and I've told this story many times, in John 1:1, when the Father and the Son are together, and it says the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim in the beginning, I believe they had a conversation. It's not written anywhere. And in that conversation, there was a discussion about wanting to have beings to live with forever. Because there's only two of them. And they had this idea, whether it came from one or the other. You know, might have been, I like to picture, since they give us the father-son metaphor, and hopefully you understand that it's a metaphor, it's not literal, okay? The father didn't have a wife and a mother for the son, and then they gave birth. And it's a relationship that as human beings, we understand a father and son, okay? We can picture that. So he says, the role that we can understand is that he's the father and I'm the son. That's how Yeshua explains it. So I'll take that son metaphor because as human beings, we, in a lot of ways, mimic and have patterns of behavior and mindset similar to them. Remember, we were made in their image. I can imagine as a son would sit down with his dad one day and say, Father, I want to make something. That's not an unusual conversation, right? A kid goes up to his dad, I want to build something. I want to make something. You want to come here? Come with me over here. We're going to build something. We're going to make something out of, clay, out of sand. If you're at the beach, out of sticks, out of something. I want to make something. I want to build something out of blocks. Of course, with Yeshua and the Father, there wasn't anything to make things out of. There was nothing. And they created it all. They created the substances that they needed to make what they wanted. And so in this conversation, however it went, they came up with the idea of having a universe. And in that universe, a planet. And on that planet, human beings. Human beings that had the potential to live forever, but would be given a finite, fleshly, limited life so that it could end and not have to go on forever if they were not going to be worthy. Oh, that messes all the Christians up. They don't like that worthiness thing. Worthiness is scriptural. Salvation has nothing to do with worthiness. Your reward has everything to do with worthiness. Salvation is a free gift. Yeshua died and freely provided all of us with the opportunity for the gift. The gift is eternal life. Nothing had to be done to make that available except what he did. You didn't have to do a thing. However, we all know that not everybody gets that gift. Why? Worthiness. So in this early conversation the Father and the Son are having, they're talking about making this beautiful place that we live in, this world, creating time and space and physical objects, all the stuff in the below, and people. And they had to come up with an understanding of, well, we would like to spend forever with them, but we're going to give them this finite life in case they don't turn out to be interested in that the way we'd like them to be. Because we want to give them this very important element called free will. which means they can choose not to want to spend forever with us. They can choose, and by the way, nobody would actually choose not to live forever, but they would choose not to be obedient and submissive forever, which disqualifies you from the worthiness. Okay, to be worthy of forever, you have to be worthy of the covenant. In other words, you have to be committed to the covenant of, I will do, without argument, without missing a mark, I will do what you ask me to do. Everything that comes out of your mouth, I will do. Exodus 19. And then when you live your life, Deuteronomy 8, where you're proving that it's in your heart, in a humble manner, to keep his commandments, then you're worthy. I mean, that is the simplicity of it. But you know what? Every day there's challenges with that, isn't there? Every day. And so, in the beginning of that plan, of course, Yeshua, at some point, the Father, I'm sure, says to the Son, well, you do know, for this plan to work, they're going to mess it up. You're going to have to die so that they can actually live forever, because I can't give them forever once they mess up, because messing up earns death. And so, since they're not going to be perfect, although we're looking for those worthy who have a perfect integrity of heart, which means that when they mess up, they repent and fix it. They own it. He said, but if that's why it says that the Father had to be willing to give his only begotten Son. So the Son had to be willing to die, and the Father had to be willing to do it, to allow it, right? Remember, everything that happens, the Father causes or allows. And the Son says, yep, I'll do it, because it says he was slain before the foundation of the world. That's where I came up with some of these thoughts about this conversation. And of course, because it says that the Father was willing to give his only begotten, then I got to believe, and part of the conversation was, okay, if you're willing to do that, I'm willing to let you. All right? And that's going to be our plan. And we're going to have to be patient for over 6,000 years for them to be ready. And then we get to where we are. Here we are, a part of that plan, which is all about them. You exist because they wanted you to exist, because they want people to live with you. You don't exist because he wanted you to exist so that you can have fun and you can have, it is his pleasure, it says, to give you pleasure. It's his pleasure to provide you with abundance. It's still about him. It's his pleasure to give you eternal life. But nobody's going to have any fun with eternal life if we're all still miserable human beings in an eternal life body. Okay? That stuff has to change. You know, in 1 John says, we don't know exactly what he's like, but we know that when we are like him, when we're changed, then we'll see him as he is. And I've always said, and that's never going to happen if you haven't already inside become like he is. You're not going to get the physical change to the incorruptible suit if the inside is still corrupted. We got to get serious about this. It's not a game, it's not a joke, it's everything. I don't know what else I can say. It's the truth. It's reality. It's absolute reality. And so, our biggest battle is between our ears and how that connects to our heart. And that really is our big struggle, isn't it? We are allowing everybody but who should speak into our heads, into our lives. But my mother told me, or my father always told me, or my pastor in the past told me, or this. Why are you listening to these people? I still have people contact me who are confused on something I've taught, they've heard me teach, but then they went and met somebody who doesn't know what I taught and doesn't know what I teach and doesn't understand these things, and that person they allowed to confuse them. I don't understand that. What is that person's qualification? I don't know. So why would you allow someone who you don't even... I mean, if you knew somebody you thought was at least as qualified, maybe more than I'm, and that confused you between the two of us, I guess I could understand that. But why do you let people with no qualifications confuse you? And better yet, let me throw this out there. Shame on you for all of you that busybodies, and you need to just knock it off. And I'm going to say that with as much angst as I can. You busybodies that feel like you need to involve yourself and straighten out everybody. You know what? Stop it. Nobody needs to hear what you have to say unless you're qualified to say it, unless you know that you're right. Because they all think they're right while they're out there wreaking havoc on everybody and creating all kinds of wreckage. But there's too much ego. There's too much pride. You want to tell everybody. You feel it's your job to straighten everybody out. Look, I get it. You came out of Christianity. Christianity's whole thing was to get you to get in other people's faces. Because if you didn't, they were going to die and go to hell, which was never true. But that's what they told you, isn't it? Oh, all these people, they're going to burn and suffer forever because you were too lazy to get off and talk to somebody. And now you need to go the other way around. You need to be quiet. That was never your job. What about in Matthew, when he sent them out? Well, what about in Matthew 28 when he sent them out? Who did he send out? Everybody that sat on the mountain and listened to him speak? He sent out the ones he trained. And told the ones he trained, I trained you, I discipled you, now you go out and find others to disciple. You trained ones. Oh, but no, Rabbi, that's the Great Commission. Yeah, for them. There's only a small group of people he sent out. He could have been talking to the 70 or the 12. It doesn't matter. It was not a big group. And yet, it's our pride and our ego. We want to do all this stuff. I got people come to me all the time, ladies especially, and they want my help leading their little Bible study group with their Sunday church friends. No. I'll pass. I don't know what they're hoping to accomplish. Well, ma'am, how long have you been doing this? 10 years. Has anybody come into Torah observance? No. Ta-da. What do you need as proof to figure this out? You are not going to bring anybody over. It's not your job. Never was your job. People come up to me, not lately, but they used to come up to me, Rabbi, how many people have you brought to Yeshua? I don't know, none. It's not my job. Matter of fact, I'm confident none. It says that none comes to Yeshua unless the Father draws them, and none comes to the Father unless Yeshua shows them the Father and points them to the Father. That's in the Father and the Son teaching. Nowhere in there was my name or yours or any involvement of any third party. The Father reveals the Son reveals the Father, period. Then he will lead you to one of the fivefold guys at some point. If you're not susceptible to just fall for the first person you find that sounds like they know more than you do. Oh, there's so many out there. Because I know the general path people kind of follow before they find me. I can name the ministries they go through. Okay? It's the same ones for everybody. Not everybody, but most everybody. And they're the ones that are very Christian-like, Torah observant. Or Torah pursuant, anyway. And so it kind of feels what they're comfortable with, but it's different enough for what they're kind of looking for. And so they go there until they realize the itch is still there. This group did not answer my questions as I needed. Something's still wrong. Something's still missing. And the problem is that you still know there's a mix going on. It blows my mind. And they're very successful. Successful meaning they're gathering lots of people, if that's your measure of success. We had a group down the road start not too long ago after we've been here a long time, and they probably had 750 people at their Passover, more than double, almost triple what we had. So what? Probably had 1,000 people there all weekend. Probably double that next year because it's appealing to a much more wide spectrum. Okay? You can't have your foot in both camps. You can't be partially in the truth. You can't, in other words, you can't go on Saturday and experience Christianity on Saturday and think that that's okay. Because it's not. And you'll get a ton of that all over the place. I don't care if they look Jewish because everybody's got a yarmulke on and everybody's got a talit on. And somebody stole my motorcycle. It doesn't matter that they look a certain way. I've been in those Messianic Jewish congregations, the MJAA type congregations, where their rabbi was trained at a Pentecostal seminary or the Assemblies of God seminary. And you can tell when they speak, they say everything. They tell their joke, they tell their story, they make you cry, they use one verse. They all have the same formula. They don't even necessarily use the verse correctly. You have to decide what you're looking for. I mean, I've got people telling me they go to Sunday church and they come to this, and I'm like, well, then you're not Torah observant. Oh, yes, I am. No. Torah forbids you from that mixture. Don't get mad at me. Torah forbids you from that confusion and that mixture. Set yourself apart, he says. You need to do things my way. You need to go to my holy convocations and not come and receive a mixed message. Yeshua and the apostles warn of the false teachers that have already come among sheep and wool, the wolves in sheep clothing thing, and they're doing the most dangerous thing. They're giving you most of what you want with just a little bit of arsenic to poison you and kill you. How much poison do you need to die? Okay? I give you a big glass of anything, water that's nice and clean and pure, put a few drops of poison, and it'll still kill you. Do I claim that we're doing everything perfect? Absolutely not. But you should have enough sense to know certain things are absolutely wrong. And yet, I see the choices people are still making. Some of you out there are going to be all offended, and because you're offended, you're going to be like, he just wants everybody just to listen to him and just to come to his thing. No. I want you just to listen to him and come to his thing. All right? And in my humble opinion, I guess, I don't think he's in those places. I know they claim his presence just flows everywhere in those places, but they said that to you in Sunday church too, didn't they? Oh, can't you just feel it? Maybe someone forgot to turn the air conditioning on. I don't know. I don't know what you're feeling. There's another spirit in this world that can make you feel all kinds of things. And that spirit imitates the truth. That spirit, if you connected with it, you would believe it's the truth. That spirit, the ministers of that spirit would look like angels of light to you or ministers of light to you. Don't fall for that whole thing the Catholic Church gave you of, the red tail and the red horned devil. If Hasatan showed up right now, you would think it was Yeshua himself in all his glory. That's what Scripture says. But I like it over here, and I like the songs they're singing and all this other stuff. If you listen to Beware False Prophets, You can't possibly sit anywhere where they refer to Messiah by the Jesus name. I don't know how that's possible. We have a lot of people who used to go here to now go to places like that. I don't understand that. How can you do that? You know what that's all about. You know what that's setting up. You understand it's the greatest setup of all time. And I'm not, for those of you that are watching that have no idea what I'm talking about, go watch the teaching, okay? Before you get all, you know what, listen to the teaching first. Because I love it. These guys get all whatever, and then I go, but did you listen to it? No. Then you know what? Go listen first. Then if you have an opinion, you can come and argue with me if you want. Go listen first. Well, I don't want to sit through an hour of that stuff. Well, then be quiet. You don't have a right to have an opinion about something you actually don't know what I'm talking about. I said certain things in that teaching you need to know before you have an opinion. What difference does it make what name we use? Watch the teaching. It's not about how you pronounce it. It's not about that. It's not about some, semantics or, any of the other etymology or any of those things. It's about what the name is used for, connected to, is trying to get you to believe. So how do you go sit and hear that? And then you all know the mainstream contemporary Christian songs, or even the old hymnal songs. You know the messages they have are the messages from the mainstream that don't match a lot of what you believe now. But you'll go sit in some of these places, and that's what they'll sing. And you'll sit there, and I watch people, mind-blowing to me, watching people that absolutely got the message of beware false prophets, and they're sitting there singing, and the J name and the whole thing. I'm like, really? Really? I mean, I understand why you don't come here anymore. You're mad at me. I get that. That's fine. But how do you go there? I mean, I don't understand how you go anywhere like that. You know why some people do it? Now we're going to get back to our group therapy that I promised you. Because in here, there's a weakness. The weakness is back to desires and cravings. They want fellowship. They want that emotional experience more than they want the truth. Yes or no? All right? I know that hurts some people. But you don't understand. I'm so miserable by myself. So move. But I can't move. Why not? Israel moved 30-something times, whatever it was, when they left Egypt till they came to the land. Every time the cloud moved. Every time Yahweh moved, they moved. Why is it surprising to you that Yahweh might move you? I'm just saying. But my family and my this and my that, you know what? Stop it. Yeshua said you want to get right into it. We're going to get right into it. Oh, but I've got all this stuff. And Yeshua said, well, sell all your stuff. You want to follow me? He said, oh, but I got all this stuff. Or, oh, I got to go bury my parents. They weren't dead yet, but, they were getting older. He said, well, I got to go take, every excuse that you have, he's already covered in this book. But you don't understand, I can't leave my mother behind. Well, bring her with you. But she won't come. Well, then leave her behind. What is so hard? You're so cold. You're so mean, Rabbi. My mother, let me do the math on this real quick, is 83, all right? I live 1,200 miles, 1,500 miles from her. It's a long drive. It's even a long flight, right? A couple hours. She's okay, and I'm here. I could feel pressure to be there. My father passed last year. She doesn't have him around anymore. I can feel pressure to go up there. She doesn't want to come down here, but I don't want to leave here. I have things to do here. So guess what? I get to call her up. If she needs me, I could get on a plane or drive. You could do the same thing. When are you going to stop trying to please everybody and feel the pressure of all that stuff because your siblings are getting in your face? No, you got to stay there and take care of mom. You got to stay there. Let them do it. Why do they get to do whatever they want and you don't? Okay, why? Well, but they won't. So then you don't either. If mom's upset enough, she'll move to you. All right? Are we playing or are we serious? What are we doing? But you don't understand. Oh, goodness. No, you don't understand. You are the one lacking understanding. Well, it's easy for you to say, Rabbi. I've moved plenty. I was living in Knoxville for 3 years, and I think I moved like 8 times. I've moved, okay? I've lived in 4 or 5 different states. I've moved. Sometimes I didn't stay very long in a place. He moved me as he needed to move me from place to place. Now he's anchored me somewhere. I've never been anywhere this long. I've been here 10 years. Not planning to go anywhere. He's planted a solid anchor here. All right? And so, you have to understand our ministry. Our ministry is not like other ministries from the point of view is that we're trying to just make sure we're pleasing enough people so they'll put enough money in the box so that we can exist. I don't need to exist as a ministry. I go out there and work. If I went out there and work, I could make more than I'm making now. I don't do this for that reason. This exists because he wants it to exist. And he wants it to exist in the unrelenting, straightforward, no holds barred, in your face, real way that it exists. All right? There's plenty of places you can go to get coddled. Of course, the coddling is never going to get you where you want to go. It's just not going to do it. But there's plenty of places you can go to get that. The rabbi was mean to me. Was he? You know, I love when Elder Billy likes to ask the question, was he mean to you? Well, let me ask you a question, he'll say. What he said, was it true? Was it right? Yeah. So, why do you care how it was delivered? And maybe he delivered it the way you needed to hear it, you just didn't like it. You know, I've had at least a few people, one for sure that I know about, I've had at least several people in the last 20 years say to me, oh, nobody's ever talked to me like that. And I said, yeah, it shows, and it's about time. I can't believe you talked, nobody's ever talked to me like that. That's why you're where you're at. Now maybe if you start listening, maybe you need it finally for someone to talk to you like that. I'm here to get you where you need to go. I'm not here to make you feel good. Okay? Although knowing that I'm here to get you where you need to go and give you the tools to get there should make you feel good. All right? I'm just saying. All right, so that was a long introduction. I told you I didn't come prepared. I just thought I'd come up and do what I do, which is open my mouth, he gives words in it, and I speak. All right? And so why don't we just go ahead and now open up the mic. If somebody wants to come up and share, I would like you to share a little bit about the things, give me enough of a generalized thing without the details necessarily, of what you struggle with. What do you struggle with that I can help you with? All right? Stephanie.
Hi, Rabbi.
Hi.
As I said to you probably several years ago at Mountain Lake Ranch, I'm standing right here. You don't have to talk to everybody about me.
Okay, they didn't quite get that the way you were trying. Okay, so we're standing in a kitchen, about 5 people, and I'm doing sort of a rant like you just heard, and she looks at me like, that's not polite. You know, I'm standing right here to talk about me like that in front of everybody.
Yeah. Really?
You know.
Because either that or you read my mail, one of the two. this feast is one where I'm having to really walk out much of what you're trying to teach, especially to the men and the women about how to be men and lead, and how to be a woman and submit. And I am submitting to my husband this feast by not serving, and it goes against everything that's in me. I want nothing more than to jump up and help, which is why it's truly, for me, an act of submission, is because it's not at all what is in me. I want to be jumping up and doing, but at the same time, I think that it kind of came to mind as you were talking even on Shabbat. It's like the Martha, Martha, Martha. You run around doing so much, but you're neglecting the bigger things. And that seems to be the lesson I need to learn for this feast. And so he has me sitting out. And as I was going through... Yes.
So I can help explain for people. Your husband is using one of the techniques that I use often, which is, often we have our pendulum way off to one side. And that's where Stephanie had been, where she would be involved in so much and working so hard in so many hours, and it was having an adverse effect on her health and some things, okay? And so her husband said, this feast, we're going to bring the pendulum all the way to the other side. Not forever, but that we can then find a balance eventually, which is what I've taught a lot of you who've counseled with me. Hey, let's bring it way over the other side. We know that's going way over the other side, but that's going to help balance out the extreme on this side, and then we'll hopefully end up in the middle where we belong. But sometimes you have to really be extreme to end something that was extreme, okay? So I supported his decision because I understood, because I know you guys a long time, okay? And you've helped with our feasts, all these years. Anyway, go ahead.
Thank you. But one of the things I kind of learned about myself is what you spoke about today, which is why I'm saying, you're talking about me, is that what kind of really came out for me is that it's that innate feeling of I'm not worthy as a person if I'm not serving, that I have to do that to be worth it, to be able to be here, counted amongst. So I totally hear what you've just said today about that being a lie. It's not the truth, but it's one of those, my head has it, but my heart doesn't. So my question for you is, what tools, tips, tricks do you have up your sleeve to help kind of during that period of time where it needs to get from your head to your heart to that point where you really kind of get it? Because I hear it, and I hear it as truth, and I know that what you're saying is right, but the heart isn't quite there yet. So what kind of things can I do to help it get from here to here?
Okay. All right, this is really important, and actually I have a thought that it may help a lot of people with this, all right? I think that there's this disconnect that people have where they get their identity or their value out of things that they do. Performance is where I get my value, okay? And so I want you rather to think of it, though, as all I should ever want to get out of performance, maybe, is appreciation. Not value, not identity. A thank you every now and then might be nice. Or just to see that what I did helped somebody, even if they don't actually say thank you. All right? Remember when Yeshua healed a bunch, only one came back to say thank you. It's that we start to find that we get our identity, which means that you don't yet believe, and this is hard, you don't believe that someone would just want to be your friend and value you and love you if you didn't do the tasks. You think that the reason they love me is because I do the tasks. My mother-in-law was that way. I used to go back and forth with her every now and then. And one of the things she would say to me, my children know I love them because I cooked for them and I cleaned for them and I did this and I did that and I did that. I said, that doesn't mean anything. That means that they know you love them. It means you did all these things for them. You spoiled them. You did this or whatever. But that was her identity. My identity is that they will love me and know that I love them because I did everything for them. And that's not where your identity should come from. That's not where your value should come from. You know, Yeshua used a sort of a parable message about the servant. He said, you know what? The servant who does everything he's expected to do is a useless servant. Because they're maybe thinking that all their value, I'm thinking now, or maybe their identity is in the fact that, well, look at me. I did what you asked. Instead of, look at me, look who I am, and because of who I am, I did what you asked. And because of who I am, I have value. And so you may think, and this would be like for Stephanie, because Stephanie was sort of like Rebbitzon's right hand for a lot of feasts with the YM2I program. But you know what, Steph? You can have a whole lot more value with my wife as who you are if you're now to only think of it based on who you were and what you were doing with her. But since you were so locked in on, but that's our relationship. I did, I helped. Why don't we work on just friendship? Why don't we work on the other aspects? You know, and think about that for any of you. Find a way to allow others to see your value beyond just tasks. Okay? You know, there are children that they only love a parent because the parent's always giving them money. That's why you have children, adult children, only call you when they need something, when they want something. They don't value you for anything else, or they would call you other times. That should tell you something. Somehow the relationship did not develop like it should. It developed into you are a resource to go to when they're in trouble. And they should still go to you when they're in trouble, but wouldn't it be nice if they went to you when they weren't in trouble? If they saw you beyond that? But see, did you ever work on that part of the relationship? Beyond, if all you ever did was work together on a particular type of project, then you may think that if you don't work on a project, your relationship's over. Well, in a sense, that's true if that's all you had. But what about working on the other stuff? What about interacting about other things? Instead of it only being about that one activity you did together. All right? And so did that help at all? Okay. All right? So what I would say is recognize the things you do because you want it to be a blessing. You would like to get some appreciation for it, but it should not be necessary. You do it because it blesses them. However, that's not where I get my value. My value is in being the kind of person that would do for others regardless of how they respond. My value as a wife would be in pleasing my husband and doing what he wants because he has my best interest in heart. My value as a husband would be make sure my wife was safe, provided for, taken care of, etc. My value, you understand what I'm saying? If you're a friend, your value should be in being a good friend, being a true friend, and not about doing things for that person and giving them gifts and everything else, although you might do that, but don't get your value out of that. Well, they're not going to love me if I don't do these things. Well, then you've misplaced, your mindset is completely wrong. You've misplaced that whole thing. They should still value you no matter what you do if you've created real value. Does that make sense? Because at some point you won't be able to do the things you were doing. Something might change. You won't have the money to do the things that cost money. You might have the physical ability to things that take a physical ability. You have to still have created enough value that they'll value you no matter what you do, and even if you do nothing. But they value you. It's a big deal. It's a big thing. It's not easy to do because we've already got ourselves convinced that our value's in certain things. Okay? And so that's where the disconnect can get. Okay, John. Nope. Push the button. There you go.
Hello, Rabbi. I'm going to follow right up with value of myself. I have so many things materially. I have good health. I have a good wife. I have a good rabbi, and my rabbi is following Yahweh. I have a covering where I can go to. Why am I so earthly minded, that I'm still chasing a car, a gun, a fish, a motorcycle. It's so many earthly things that I'm kind of like trying to fill up a hole that should be filled by Him. And it just seems to be, still be hanging over me.
All right. So some things we want, okay, the physical things we want because of the thing that they do, the functionality of it. Okay, and some things we don't actually need to function, okay, and some things we do. So, for example, for self-defense and protection, you may want to might want to be armed. You might want to own a weapon, a gun. Okay, that's a self-defense thing. Do you need 17 of them? Probably not. Okay? So you understand, after you get something, like let's say you like to eat fish. And so going fishing and then having the fish to eat sort of makes sense and is functional. Of course, once you have enough to eat, the rest of it is just pleasure, right? And so you have to ask the question, what is the feeling that I'm chasing, that this thing that I'm going to do, I think is going to give me that feeling? When I chase the car, well, what's the car going to do for you? Do you have a car? Yes. Why do you want that car? Because it's going to make me feel a certain way. So then once you can identify the underlying feeling that you're actually chasing, then you can decide whether or not it's an appropriate feeling or if there's a better way to receive that feeling than chasing after the thing, the item. In other words, dig underneath. I have, let's say, a broken, beat-up car that's always broken, doesn't work, and I'm chasing after a relatively new car that works great. That's not the same thing as I have a very functional car that works great, but I want this latest, greatest, fancy thing that just came out because I want it. All right? I have an iPhone X, 10, whatever that is. I don't know how many, that's 5 or 6 versions ago. It works. You know what? I've never felt the need to get a new one. But there are people that get the new one every time the new one comes out. Why? They're chasing a feeling. They feel empowered, they feel special, they feel spoiled, they have the latest in the, whatever it is, I don't know. You'd have to dig inside to see what it is that makes you want something you don't need. That's really, I guess, the best way to go with this. Why do you want what you don't need? And you want it because it's going to make you feel a certain way about yourself or feel a certain way about something. And you got to figure out what that hole is that you're trying to fill in that feeling. If you can identify that, then you can decide to fill it maybe with something else. You can choose maybe a different way to fill that hole, okay? That's why you're chasing after things, because those things you believe when you get them will make you feel a certain way. Of course, then once you get them, you want something else after that, or another one, or a bigger one, or a faster one, or whatever. And that's an insatiable cycle. Because it's, it's like women when they go through their time, their body starts craving calcium and things like that, and then you eat Cheetos and think you're getting calcium. Okay? Or chocolate or whatever. But your body is craving something, but you're packaging it into something that is not actually what it's craving. Okay? So you think you're craving that. And so just understand you should be asking more of the peeling back the onion layers. What is driving this? All right? I want, and then the question should be, why? Okay? It's because you want to feel a certain way. Ultimately, it's all about avoiding doing things because you don't want to feel a certain way or doing certain things because you want to feel a certain way. Well, I don't want to do that because it'll make me feel, this, embarrassed, shamed, weak, this or whatever it is that you're afraid is going to happen. All right? Or I want to do this because it's going to make me feel empowered or special or rich or this or that, whatever it is. Okay? John?
Thank you. Can I have 30 more seconds?
Sure.
I want to thank you and your wisdom in counseling me through the leadership team. And I haven't been the man I need to be. For 25 years, I've been married to this wonderful woman behind me. And for 25 years, I haven't grown up. I'm 60 years old. And I thank you for spurring me on with not pulling any punt. I forget how to put it. You cut right through the crap.
I have a very special knife for that.
Okay.
And it's self-cleaning, so I don't have to worry about it.
And I appreciate that. And I just want to say that after 25 years, she'll probably correct me and say it's 26. That's okay. Things are better than they've ever been, and they're growing. And I thank you for that time, and I thank you once again for teaching out of the Word what Yahweh wants you to teach, what I need to hear. That's all. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. All right, listen. I want all of you to get more out of, and again, this is not, I'm not trying to value something differently. I think it's great when you listen to Stephanie, you're going to listen to Becky, you're going to listen to some of the other ladies. I want you to because the ladies don't tend to have as much problem coming and getting help. I want you to hear a man's testimony about how he went and humbled himself and said, I need help. And then hear the fruit of that. I don't want to diminish what you get from the ladies. But none of you are all impressed by that. I know you're not, because you're used to seeing that. I want you to be moved by the men that come up and say, I've done this. I've counseled. I've taken the blows. It was what I needed, and it bore the good fruit. All right? And I'm talking to the men, because it's the men that are going, yeah, the ladies, they're going to go talk, whatever. No, you need to come and talk. Own your stuff. Stop being embarrassed. Stop being ashamed. We already know you're screwed up. You're not hiding anything. You're all like, well, I don't want to go and confess to Rabbi. We already know. You think you're hiding it? Kidding me. Goodness. Okay? No, it's not because their wife calls. You wear it out on you all day. We see and know that there's things underlying. We may not know exactly what the cause of your dysfunction is, but we can see that you are dysfunctional, that you're needing help. And many times among the leadership will be like, hey, has so-and-so talked to you? No, but so-and-so. And we're looking like, well, he needs to, but he won't. And we've had wives go to us and say, could you call my husband? No. Well, why not? Won't help him. He's not ready. He's got to ask for help. He's got to be ready enough to ask for help. And some of you men are still looking at me sideways thinking, oh, he's talking to everybody else but me. No, I'm talking to every one of you I've never sat with. Because every one of you needs it. There's not a man in this room that's arrived, okay? And I can help every one of you. That's not ego or pride. Because I know what Yahweh will do when you sit in front of me. Same thing he does when anybody sits in front of me. He will tell me what you need. He will tell me what you're dealing with. He'll help me peel away the layers to get to what's really going on. And then we'll deal with it. We'll get down to it. All right? All right? Hey, some of you heard that nice, strong amen from Rocky. Rocky's been there. Rocky comes, he sits down and says, I need your help. All right? And you don't, there's nothing to be, you know what? You should be more ashamed and embarrassed that you're not getting the help. And by the way, if you're married, your wives are frustrated. Because they know you need the help, and they know you're too stubborn and prideful to come and get it. That's not helping your marriage. I don't want you to think they're all calling me. They're not. Okay? Oh, but they wish they could. And I don't get that. Okay? Before I was doing this, when I was sitting in a chair like you are, I've gone for counseling. I never had a hesitation if I knew I needed help or thought I needed help to go figure out what to do. It just seems like it should be a no-brainer. But we have our emotions blocking all that up. All right. I need to leave time for the live stream. So let's go to that first, and Becky will get to you afterwards. Rob?
Okay. I have very many of them. We're still having some buffering issues here. The chat's up, but it's just not moving very fast. William Kennedy, when you were talking about the poison, he said he made a comment, but I think he was trying to make a question. He says, we're all here because we left out of the system, and it takes time to remove the poison. And I think he followed up, or somebody followed up, is how long or how do we start getting rid of that poison that we've been slowly ingesting?
All right. First of all, I want to clarify something. You haven't really left the system when you've left the church. You left part of the system. It really depends on where you end up. Because you can be in a slightly more Torah-focused part of the system, but it's still part of the system. Come out of my people. I've spoken at a congregation where the elder, the head, the second in line to the pastor, or the whatever he called himself, worked on Saturdays. And he was like the guy who ran the congregation whenever the head guy was traveling, and he traveled a lot. I'm thinking, really? You have a person leading your congregation half the time who works on Saturdays. How is that possible? Because it's still part of the system. Coming out of my people is not a simple process of just stop going to Sunday church. Because a lot of you can still go to Sunday church on Saturday, so to speak. And most of the places you go, if you were to go at this point, you're going to hear all of that same doctrinal, positional stuff, just frameworked in a Old Testament, more of a framework. The way they see salvation, grace, everything is still going to be Baptist or Pentecostal or Lutheran or Methodist or whatever you came from. Just a matter of whatever their background was, right? And you can find that, no doubt. I refer to the Messicostals and the Messabaptists, and the whole thing's a mess. The guy's bringing my motorcycle back. So, I'm sure even on the live stream they can't hear it, but that's okay. And so just realize when you start off the conversation with, we came out of the system. Did you really? See, that also could be a little bit of a delusion. Coming out of some of it doesn't mean you came out of all of it. And so every day you need to be asking the question, have I gotten rid of it? It's like cancer. All right, when they go and they try to surgically remove it, they're always afraid they may have missed something. Why are they afraid? Because if they miss something, it could regrow. What happens is when you left the church and went into basically a Messicostal, Messabaptist, whatever, sure, you're on Saturday now, and you're not eating pork, and you're not doing Christmas and Easter, but everything else is the same. You may still think that you're going to heaven or hell and all that other stuff. You may think that salvation and works and faith and all that doesn't work the way I explained it to you. You may think that grace is unmerited favor. You may think all these things. Some of you are thinking, of course, isn't it? Go listen to the teaching. The search for the doctrine of grace. Go listen to the teaching. Are you saved? And so that would be my first point, all right? And then as far as, trying to get all the poison out, how do you know you've gotten all the poison? Look, every day you need to be examining yourself and what you're doing, where your walk is, and all that stuff. And look for what needs to go so that it no longer potentially can kill you, to be blunt. All right, Rob.
Okay. From Yaakov Yudin, says, Rabbi, I'm struggling with my coworkers and the boss. It says they claim to be Christian, but are starting to meddle in the Torah. They're starting to meddle in Torah. They claim the law is done away with and try to include me in their shenanigans. How do I stay away from that and also stay away from the frustration that comes with that?
All right. I'll answer the second part first. I have no idea why you're frustrated. Why? I always sound like I'm just this cold-hearted, not caring. Why do you care? Why do you care what kind of confused mess they're doing? It's not your job. It's not your problem. If they're truly seeking truth, they will be led to someone like me and get what they need. If you want to try to see if you can help with that, offer them the teachings. And if they receive them, great. If they don't, then they're just goofing off anyway. They're not ready. And so there shouldn't be any frustration with that. And as far as trying to involve you in their shenanigans, you just say no. I don't see how that's so hard. They try to involve you, say no. No, thank you. Not interested. But then they want to argue with you. Don't argue with them. And also they want to ask you questions. Don't answer them, because if you answer them, you're just giving them material to argue about. Just say no. Well, why? I just would rather not. Can't argue with that. Well, why not? We're looking at the same stuff you are, blah, blah, blah. Not exactly, no. And I don't want to argue about it. Walk away. But I don't know why anybody's frustrated with other people are doing. You got enough to focus on what you're doing. Don't worry about it. You have to walk out your own salvation. Philippians 2:12, right? All right, one more, Rob.
That's all I've got for right now. The internet's down right now.
I'm going to fire some people. Not our people, but we had people put that all in, and I'm going to fire them all. Okay, we'll come out here to Becky.
Hi, Rabbi. I had indicated yesterday that our family is going through crises, right? We have counseled with you, and there were instructions given. And in the heat of the storm, we'll say, I guess, it's really hard to sometimes see direction. And when you talk to someone else, we talk to family here, and when you're outside of it, it's easier to see the hand moving to get you to where we need to be, right? And so there are some setbacks, there are some big feels, there are some emotional family issues involved. And so my husband is very aware of what the direction was, what we need to be doing to move forward with our family. And he has peace about it, and he's been great. But my question to you is, when we're not moving quick enough for me, or we get hung up, or we sometimes take 2 steps back to take a step forward, I'm just curious, as his wife, he's the head, how can I best support and encourage and be patient, but also know that as he's going through and walking through his own personal feels about all the things and letting go of things, that I'm not creating more tension or drama or anything like that. But I just want to know how I can best be there for him, so that as he makes the best decisions we can for our family, that he's supported. But also, if we stumble along the way, or if it doesn't go as smooth as I would like or he would like, that I'm helping still, and I'm not a problem in the process.
Okay. I think she's expecting a smacking. And I'm happy to deliver. Here we go. Look, Becky, it's very simple. You got to get you out of the mix here. All right? You said the words, when it's not going as fast as I want it to go. Well, you already said he's making good decisions. It's not going as fast as you would like and this and that. Well, then let him keep making the decisions. As long as his decisions are taking you in a direction that you're comfortable going, because after all, you need to walk together in agreement, then let it be. As long as he's okay with it, you need to encourage him and say, honey, I believe in you. I know you're going to get us there. I know we're not going on a straight line. We're going 2 steps back sometimes and then 3 steps forward and then 1 step back and 2 steps, whatever it is. But you need to be focusing on him and how he's feeling about it and encouraging him. You're too busy focusing on how you feel about it, and that's where your struggle is. Because you're saying, how can I encourage him when I'm not happy? You got to get you out of that mix. That's how. Okay? You're thinking about you. Stop thinking about you. Focus on him, and you'll be able to support him better. That's not easy to do, but you're too busy focused on you. Focus on you from the big picture. Ask questions to help somebody help zoom out and realize you are moving. You're just not moving as fast as you want. All right, so you are moving. Be happy with that. Encourage that. Believe in that. Okay? There was a time when I talked to you guys where you were not moving and you weren't going in a direction that you really... And so this is a positive, better place than before. All right? You are at least moving in a direction that you both want to go. Okay. But I think the problem for all of us is, especially for you ladies, you can't really be encouraging and supportive of your husband when you don't like what he's doing, you think he's wrong, you think he's messing it up, you don't like how it's going, and then it's all about you. Be careful with that, okay? Now, you can go to your husband and say, look, honey, I'm struggling right now because I see that we're struggling and we're not going that quickly, and I'm just needing you to reassure me that you've got this under control and you know where we're going, and you have this. You can ask him that. After all, he should be there to give you that reassurance. And you can go and say, honey, I believe in you. I know where we're going. Sweetheart, I get it. But right now, I'm struggling. I'm not seeing it like I need to, and I'm looking for you to reassure me. Okay? And look for that. Does that help? Yeah, because it requires you to stop looking with all that thinking about yourself. It's hard, okay? And I'm not picking on her. We all have that problem, okay? It affects me. I don't like it. And so it's hard for me to encourage you when what you're doing is making me feel this way. You're not fixing my problem. I don't like this. That happens sometimes. So just go and keep praying for him and believing in him and encouraging him. You'll get there. You'll get there. All right. Next.
Okay. Full disclosure. What I do is I go into another room and I close the door and I go, well, I think you should do this and I think you should do that. And if you'd only do that, and did you talk to Rabbi? And by the way, blah, 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 blah. And I get it all out. And then I, like in my codependency meetings, I go, thank you for letting me share. Is that wrong?
As long as you're not doing that to John.
No, I'm in another room, and I need to
I heard that part. I'm just saying for the people listening.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay?
Because I want to support my husband.
This is
and
John's
I want
wife,
to.
by the way.
Hi,
before.
John's wife. Yeah, thank you, honey. I love you. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for being vulnerable. I am so proud of that man. And I did not call you Rabbi because I just prayed that he would call you.
Okay,
and he
this
finally
is
did.
Laura. Just so we
Hi,
can introduce
I'm
you
Laura.
properly. Yes. Okay,
John's
so
wife.
Laura, when you go into, and some of you may want to do this. I think this is actually, a reasonable idea, I guess. If you need to get it out, well, there's only one being in the universe that getting it out isn't going to negatively affect. So go before the Father and say, Father, I just need to get this all out. I'm not going to say it to my husband, but I need to get it out. And then you feel better.
Yes.
And then you're able to go out there. And it's been working because you feel better and John's been doing what he needs to do.
And I go, thank you for letting me share. And by the way, I trust you. I trust you, I trust you, I trust you to the Father.
Right.
I do that. But that's not even why I came up. I just, so you said, I'm going to try not to take over as the yellow. Okay. So you said something early on about people choosing to believe the voices in their head from their parents or their abusers or their, that kind of thing. And what in my experience, in my own experience, and in the experience of working with people as a parent coach and in the other areas that I work with people, what I have found is that they aren't actively choosing that often. They're not often actively choosing it, but in the moment they are so caught up in those grooves in their brain that were once footpaths, but they are grooves now, and they get on the edge, right? And they fall into those grooves, those deep, deep grooves, and they don't know how to get out. In the moment, they're just panicking because they're falling. And I have my own toolbox for kind of grabbing onto a handle before you fall all the way in. Something you can actively choose to say or to do or to read, a phone call you can make, whatever it is. I would like for you to weigh in, if you would. I need more tools to help the people that I help, and also for myself. When our emotions are so strong and the trauma that has been triggered has completely taken over in the amygdala down there. So if you could speak to that, please.
All right. So first of all, kind of like the, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, you had these lifelines. All right. Let's not use the ask the audience, okay? Don't do that. Phone a rabbi, that's a good choice. Not phone a friend, okay? Because you need to get somebody that's going to be able to understand and not become codependent with or sucked into the vortex of your emotional space. So you can have a good friend maybe that can handle that. So you have to know who you have in your life that you can go to handle when you're in that space. You can also create anchors to certain things that can help you get back into a different emotional place. You can use music for that, okay? There's certain things that you can do that that you feel a certain way when you do it, and then you can allow that, when you do it, it brings you back to that emotion. So when you're in an emotion you don't want to be in, and the thing is all going haywire, go to that thing that helps bring you to, okay, that thing, all right? I have certain music that I listen to that when I want to focus and be productive and not be distracted by anything, I put this music on, and I'm very productive, okay? And so it's just a go-to thing. I've linked and anchored by practice.
How do you, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, go ahead, ask your question. I'll see if it has.
How do you link it? Because
Okay,
I talk
that's what I'm
about
gonna-
pairing. How
that's
do
what
you
I'm gonna do
pair?
now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exactly where I was going next. So this is how you can do it on purpose. All right, this is something Tony Robbins teaches, other guys teach out there. I give this to people as part of our counseling. All right? Anytime, so I told you this would be group therapy. So all of you can handle this, okay? Or take this and use it. Anytime that you're in a strong emotion, good or bad, okay? You're in a strong emotion. You're feeling really strongly at peace, happy, angry, depressed, sad, whatever, okay? Anything unique that happens more than once, like over and over again, when you're in that state, eventually links or anchors. This is why if you're listening to a certain song, all of a sudden it takes you back to something, right? You smell a certain smell and you're right back somewhere, okay? Because you were in a strong emotional place. That's why a lot of couples will say, oh, that's our song, because at some time when you were getting together and you were really feeling strongly about each other, that song played. And then another time you were together and it played again. And so somehow that song became your song, right? Certain smells can be that way, certain physical things. I had a friend who had a fairly violent family. And apparently, if someone came up behind him and touched him on the shoulder, like if somebody went to touch him or grab him from behind, it usually meant he was about to get pounded. So if you accidentally didn't know that and went up to him and went like sort of like, hey, Joe, how you doing? And tapped him on the shoulder, he would almost turn around and pop you as just an automatic reflex. And I almost got clobbered a couple of times. But he had embedded that trigger because of the emotion he felt of panic. When he had someone touch him in that way, it meant somebody was about to pound him, an older brother usually, because he had a couple of big, brutal older brothers. Now, so what can you do? All right, so that's what Laura's really asking. How do you do this? So you get yourself into the emotion that you're wanting to replicate. So let's say you want to feel calm, peace, serenity, because you want to trigger this when you're in this, everything's crazy. And when you can get yourself into that place, I mean, really as fully as you can get into that place, then you want to do something that is unique. So I always tell people, do something physical, like maybe take 2 fingers and sort of just tap them together in a way that if you just did it, nobody really would see you doing it. You could have your hands down, or just something where maybe you tap your knuckles a certain way. It's just something that would not trigger anybody to think you're doing anything, but you are linking something. Then you practice getting into that emotional space again, and you do that whatever that thing is again. Like Tony Robbins has this thing where when he claps his hands real hard and puts his arms out, he's at full energy. So if you ever watch him, he does this thing, and then, man, he smacks his hands, and he's just exploding. He tells us in the teachings he does that he has linked that doing that physical thing puts him at peak energy go. So if he needs to feel that way, if he's kind of like this, he just goes, bam, and then he's ready to go. He's connected it. So you can connect these things, and you can just do something physical that gives you that, okay? Get to that emotional space, do something unique, get to the emotional space, do something, the same thing over and over again. Eventually, it will be when you do that physical thing, the emotion will trigger because you've linked them together. But it takes time, okay? You have to do this consistently. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. These are things that happen automatically. Now you're just learning to utilize the things that already happen and do them on purpose the way you want. All right? And that's something you can use. Okay.
Okay, so I have like 2, but my struggle in most is I do a lot of saving, or I try to save my family.
Save them, what do you mean?
Like being there for them, helping them through things.
Okay, so you're a rescuer.
Yeah, kind of like, yes, sir. I will put that title on myself, yes.
Yeah.
And so I have that struggle.
All right, hold on. Let's deal with that. All right, so why do you rescue?
Because I feel like I don't want them to have to go through a battle, maybe. I don't know how I don't want them to go through what I went through when I was young.
Okay, so you have 2 options. You can advise or you can rescue. You can say, hey, I was where you are, and let me give you some advice to help you through that or help you to avoid certain things. Or you could rescue, which means that you're now going to not allow them to learn anything. You're hurting them. You think you're helping them. Rescuing is enabling, entitling, and coddling. It's not helping. Does everyone hear that, please? Stop rescuing everybody. They're never going to figure it out. I had one couple, okay, who wanted to maybe move here and had one child that lived nearby who constantly needed help and another child that lived in their house that always seemed to need their help. And and they were both married and had kids, but they had basically been rescuing them all the time. And I said, you need to leave for no other reason than they need to figure out how to live without you. You are not allowing them to grow. And you know what? They left and they came here and their children thrived because they had to figure it out. All right? We advise, we do not rescue. Okay? If my child came to me in an emergency, I would figure out the minimum to do and let them figure the rest out, advise them, and let them learn and grow from the experience. Otherwise, they will continue to need you to rescue them forever. And what's going to happen when you're not around? That's going to happen someday. And then how are they going to handle anything? I don't know. Mom's not around to rescue me. See, you're not helping. So your first thing is to recognize that your motive is based on a false idea. The idea that rescuing is helping them. It's not helping them. Okay? So first you have to own that. If I want to help them, I should advise them and let them make their own decisions and live with their own consequences. You know why our teenagers are so not ready to adult? Because they have almost never had to deal with anything called a consequence. We protect them, coddle them, barely punish them with anything. They don't know what it's like to get a beating. If you're over 50, you know what it's like to get a beating. Okay? Our kids have no idea what it's like to get a beating. We don't know what it's like to have parents that we cried our eyes out and they ignored us. I'm screaming my lungs out. So what? Scream all you want. Go to your room. Don't come out. Scream some more. They ignore you. It's what you needed, though. You needed to know that you're not going to manipulate them by screaming and yelling and doing all this stuff. All of us are guilty of being manipulated by our children. We coddled and we gave in and we allowed them to manipulate us. And so they did not have to deal with natural consequences. My children do come up to me from time to time when they were in school and doing homeschooling, and I've said to them things like, I already passed 7th grade. But I'm going to get an F. So you get an F. And by the way, I'm not a parent that yells at them for their grade. They earned it. Let them get the consequence of it, the feeling of it, and figure out if they don't like that feeling, how to do better next time. No grade is going to ruin their life. It might ruin yours because now you're embarrassed and ashamed as a parent, which is stupid. Okay? Because not, by the way, this is a real hard thing for all you parents out there. And wives, too. Okay, I'll first deal with all you parents. Stop worrying about what everything your children do and how it reflects on me. Oh, it reflects on me. It makes me look bad. No, stop that. It makes them look bad. Why do you care what they do? Well, because then I'll be embarrassed. And the parent grabs the kid. You embarrassed me. They don't care about embarrassing you. Why don't you give them a smack and tell them why what they did was bad for them, if it was. Why do they care about you? You embarrassed me. And they're like, so what? They're going to embarrass you next week, too. So I'm going to look you in the eye going, that's my job. I'm a child. My job's to embarrass you. Just like you embarrassed your parents. And you wives, same thing. Your husbands do stuff in public, and you're like, you embarrassed me. He embarrassed himself if he embarrassed anybody. Why do you have to think everything's about you? It's not all about you. Let people own their own stuff. Okay? So your children. You know, I've told my children when they start whining and complaining about this or that, I said, you know what, I went to school, I had that problem, or I had a job, and I had a bad boss, and I had a problem with this coworker. All the things they're going through, hey, I'll listen to what you have to say. I'll give you some advice, but really, you're going to have to learn to figure it out because that's your life. Life sucks. Okay? In the below, life sucks. All right? Get used to it. But if you can adjust to it, if you can understand it, you could thrive at it because you'll learn how to work through this very poor system that we have in the below and figure out how to succeed in spite of the fact that it's such a terrible system. Okay? I got to watch my mouth. I was about to say a whole bunch of stuff. There are no bad words. Okay, so understand that you should not have that problem, okay? Owning their problem. My children would struggle. I said, do you want my advice? I'll give them advice. Do you want my help? Ask for it. Maybe I'll give it to you. Maybe I won't. I'm not going to come in and just rescue you. You'll learn nothing if I do. Nothing. Matter of fact, you'll learn negative things. You'll learn, I don't have to learn anything. I'll just get rescued. What do you think the government's doing? Coddling everybody. So nobody has to do anything. The government will just take care of them. They want everybody dependent on, you know, the government or whatever. Well, your kids are dependent on you. Why do you think we have children living in a parent's house and they're 35 years old living on a couch in the basement? That's unbelievable. Kick them out. Oh, but they won't be. Kick them out. They'll figure it out. Okay? They're not your problem anymore. I've had people come to me about their child, and at some point I realized it sounds like this is an older one. I said, how old is your child, by the way? 37. Where does the child live? 2 states away. Is he married? Sure. Got kids? Sure. Then what's your problem? Well, he's doing all this dumb stuff. That's his problem, not your problem. He's an adult. It's his life. You have a small window of responsibility from the time they come out of you until they get to be about 18. Okay? And you need to lessen that responsibility starting probably at 13 and give them more and more of their own responsibility so that they're ready for it at 18. You coddle them all the way to 18, and then you're thinking they're never going to be ready because you haven't even started making them ready. I've already planted in my children's heads, you can stay here as long as you want, but you're going to have to own your life, get a job, pay your bills, pay rent, whatever it is. I don't mind you living in my house. I love you. I like having you here. But you are going to adult. I am not going to be the guilty person who's responsible for you not growing up. Do you understand? All right. Do you know most children who you take and throw in the water don't drown? But then you say, but I hear stories all the time about the child that drowned. Yeah, the child that didn't know you were standing there, didn't know anybody was around, fell into the swimming pool, did splash around the best they could for a little while, and then panicked and drowned. The kid you throw in the pool while you're standing there is going to paddle around and do everything they need to do, and if need be, you'll reach in and grab them, but they won't drown. They will kick and do, and that's what your kid will do too at 37. You throw him out. He'll figure it out. He'll get a job or 3 and figure out how to pay some bills. You created that problem, or at least you codependented it. You allowed it to happen. That shame is on you, but you don't have to keep letting it happen. You can stop the nonsense and tell your children, I'm not rescuing you anymore. You need to become more responsible and do your things. I will advise you. You can come for advice. You can let me know when you have a problem. But you are going to handle your stuff. Tell your children the same thing I've told you over and over again. You are primarily responsible for all aspects of your life. All right? All right? Which means you, helicopter mom, hovering around, rescuing everybody. It's a rescue helicopter. Okay? You have got to realize that you are not responsible for their lives. You're responsible for your life. They're adults now. They're responsible for their own lives. Amen? All right. All right, what else?
Second part. And so I struggle with, like, where I went to before, where I'm single. My kids are all old, so I'm just single. But I'm about to be 50, and I know I've heard about the covering. I need to have a covering. I'm an independent. I've been a single mom, started off at $9,000 a year and ended up at what I make now. But do I have to get married and go forth with my life, or can I just keep following the Father that I'm following him the way that I know to follow him?
All right, you can stay single, you can get married, all options are available. What you mentioned when you talked about a covering is that you need some resource in your life, a man, that you, normally a woman, when they're younger, they would go to their father if they needed counsel. Now, I know a lot of you didn't have good fathers to go to, but I'm just telling you the way the structure was supposed to be, all right? And then they would get married. They would go to their husband, okay, with world life things. Hey, this is going on. I don't know what to do. So you would ask your father, you would ask your husband, or maybe an older sibling brother, okay, who might be kind of the man of the family if the father's not around, that kind of thing, right? So we can provide that as a ministry if you desire it and if we agree to it, where not talking about it covering like the spiritual stuff. I'm already your rabbi. If you have a spiritual problem, you call me and I help you through that, right? Those kind of counselings. I'm talking about if you're a single woman, you may have a big decision to make, like moving, changing jobs. Do I buy or lease? Do I rent or lease, or whatever it is, right? And if you haven't made those decisions yourself, because your husband always did or your father always did, well, then you may need someone to help guide you through the thinking process so you can learn how to make those decisions. We will not make decisions for you, just like I just told you about rescuing and everything else. I am not going to make any decisions for you, which, by the way, frustrates half the people that come to me because they want me to just tell them what to do. And then I say, no, not going to tell you what to do. Please, I don't know what to do. Figure it out. It's part of the growth. Okay? So if you're handling life fine and you don't feel you need any help, it's good to know you have somebody, if something came up, that you could call. All right? And that's what we're talking about by covering. Someone you could call when you don't know what to do with a secular life situation, not a Torah situation. Torah situations, you call me anyway. All right? But a life situation, you should have that as a single woman. Somebody that you can turn to and say, I was thinking of doing this. Do you think that's a good idea? Is there something I'm missing? Am I not thinking it through right? Whatever it is, okay? All right. So for that, you don't need to get married, okay? If you ever decide you want to, then that's great, but there's no requirement there. Okay, Heather.
Hi, Rabbi.
Hi.
When you were speaking about trauma in childhood, or I guess at any point in life, and people that can't leave that behind, it kind of carries through. I don't think I struggle, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I struggle with carrying trauma from childhood through. I think I let it go and actually was able to never use that as an excuse through my life. But I'm finding recently that I am wondering if it's actually stunted me, the trauma that did occur, mostly in relationships, I think. That I didn't have, like you've mentioned, like some of us just didn't have good examples of either marriage or just relationships in general. And so I don't want to use that as an excuse, but I'm like, did something get left out? And how do I then figure that out and fill it up?
All right, so that's a really good question, all right? And this is where counseling, comes into play. And you and I have counseled, a few times, so we've covered some of those things that you're dealing with. The thing is this, the trauma that you had, there's really two aspects to it. One is if you haven't let it go and released it, it could be affecting you going forward as you bring it along with you. Even if you did release it, though, it may have stunted or skewed the way you see certain things, especially in relationships, to the point where you're now having a hard time having proper ones because you don't even know what that looks like, okay? And that's not because you're still holding on to the trauma, it's just because that's your experience and you don't have another one, so you don't really understand what that can look like or how to go about it. And that's where through counseling we can talk about what you're going through, how you're handling it, where the disconnects are, and how to then develop a healthier way of looking at everything. Now that again is a process that, because you've been doing it your whole life, is going to take some time to reset. But it starts with, everything that we talk about starts off with, you got to figure out where your starting point is. All right, that's why I like to use that mall map thing, like you are here. All right, so when you counsel, the first thing we're going to do is try to figure out, where are you actually? What is your current way of seeing things let's say your problem is relationships. Okay, so what is the status of your relationships? What things about them aren't working? And let's try to figure out why they're not working and where the mindset or approach or thought process is off, if that's the problem, okay? And then through counseling, we can then come up with a plan of action to reset all that, okay? All right, Justin, you're probably going to be the last one, right about 6:30 here.
All right, so I guess my question for you pretty much is, I've counseled with you many times. I'm a man in training and a husband in training, and humbly I've had to come and admit that I didn't know how to be a man and I didn't know how to be a husband. And through the last few weeks, weekly, pretty much, I've been coming and counseling with Elder Billy on a weekly basis, because I realize that unless I put myself out there and keep asking and trying and seeking, even listening to motivational things that you've talked about, I'm not going to make any progress. But where's that line where I can measure myself to see where I'm making progress and not possibly diluting my perception and thinking, hey, look, I've done a little bit when maybe I haven't?
All right, there's probably 2 ways to go about this, all right? The one ideal way would be to have somebody like your wife, okay, somebody who's close to you, who knows where your challenges are, who can give you some insight as to whether or not you're making some progress. Of course, depending on the level of your relationship and the quality of it, I mean, if you're in a negative relationship and the quality is not very good, they may not be willing to admit you're making any progress. So it really depends on that relationship. So it'd be helpful if there was somebody, like if you're counseling with Billy, that who can look at and ask questions and see, in these things you've been struggling with, how's that been going? And you may see little bits of improvement here and there as time goes, because it's going to take a little while. And then as it goes, it should hopefully grow some momentum. The curve should curve up as you start to make some progress. So the easiest way is to have an outside observer be able to say, yeah, this thing you've been telling me about that you've been struggling, I've noticed that there's been some improvement, okay? So it's kind of like when I started to go, about losing weight. In the beginning, nobody would have noticed anything, but after a while, others could come up to me and say, hey, you've been talking about that, we've noticed you've lost some weight. Well, then if it's a relationship thing, it has to be people that see you in those relationships, can observe you and say, we've noticed that that's improved. So it's not so simple, because you have to have that person that is aware of what's going on enough to say they can see the improvement. So like if something is going on with you and your wife and nobody's ever around to see it, then the only person that can answer that question is you or her. All right, so that's kind of the challenge with that, all right? Okay. So after I said he was last, Rocky comes up. No, Rocky, go ahead. I love hearing from you. Go ahead. But Rocky, you are last.
Okay, thank you. Last will be first.
Okay, and I'm sorry. And Justin, I said there were 2 things. One would be that outside observer. The other is finding a way to examine yourself and being honest and say, I know where I was, and I know in certain situations I would have done this, and now I notice that I'm doing this differently, so that's an improvement. I'm maybe not arrived yet, but I made some improvement, okay? Okay. All right, Rocky.
See if you can speak Rocky again, and I'm going to try to explain this without being too confusing. In order to possess vital thought must be impregnated with love. Love is a product of emotion. It is therefore essential to control, guided by the intellect and reason. We know that Yahweh is true love, and true love has no opposites. It makes a lot of sense to me. The fact that I have a knowledge of the created power of thought does not mean that I possess the art of thinking. Let the thought dwell on the fact that knowledge does not apply itself. So, I look at my mind, how they talk about how our mind has these 2 levels, the conscious and the subconscious. And I look at this conscious part of me as the husband, this rational part of me. And then I look at this subconscious part of me as my wife. That it is emotional. It has. It's not funny, but it has this emotion. It has this intuition, and it has memory. And I've realized that it's subjective. It will believe whatever it's subjected to. It'll submit to it. And then I've realized that my subconscious is still in that delusion. There's so much that I believe is true, and as I keep having more revealed to me, and I realize, well, that's not right. That's what I used to believe, but yet I feel that emotion about it, But it's irrational, and I can get myself so worked up that I have anxiety attacks that is so real. It's hard to explain until you actually felt them, but. What I'm trying to say is that I have to retrain that brain and become one. I'm supposed to become one. I don't think it's even possible that a husband and wife can become one on this plane. But yet inside of me, I should be able to. The master the self-control of the thoughts and feelings is the highest achievement. That's my goal. To retrain my brain. So, if that made any sense. And I guess there's no question. I guess there is really no question, and is there? So, thank you for letting me share that.
Hey.
I got to remember with this lighting system not to wear white. This is kind of I look like I'm glowing or something. All right. So, Rocky, we'll call those Rocky Proverbs, The first bunch, it's just sounded like one-line sort of proverbs about thinking and thought and the mind and stuff like that. It's really, really good. Look, I understood what he was talking about. Hopefully you did as well. And if you haven't studied the way our minds work and the way the thinking process works and how our subconscious works, and you may not have followed that, but what you need to understand is the subconscious operates subjectively based on what you've been consistently putting in a conscious way. All right? And so as you're in your conscious, in your awareness, in that conscious area, you come to believe certain things. Those become the rules on the subconscious that you now operate under. Those subjective beliefs that you have about you can or you can't do this, or I'm worth this, or I'm not worth that, or I'm no good, or I'm excellent, or whatever it is. Those things are conscious things first, and then they sink down into the subconscious, and they guide and operate underneath the stream, so to speak. And so you can fix that by making a consistent effort to put what you want consciously in so that it could then eventually change the subconscious programming. I know Rocky's like, yeah, that's what I was saying. Okay. I told you I could speak Rocky. All right. He's like, that's what I was saying. All right. Okay? So this is where people using affirmations are so successful. Okay, they write down what they want to reprogram themselves, and they say those things and repetitively put them into their mind. They think about them. If you can say those things that would be in these affirmations that you know are not true yet, but you're trying to reprogram, say them with as much emotion as if they were already true. How would you feel? Okay? Let's say you've always felt you're worthless. And so now you're going to put in this thought as an affirmation: I am of high value to the Father. The Father values me. But you already feel worthless. So how are you all right, the Father values you? You can't really get behind that so much. So I want you to do, when you do something like this, if you were to do affirmations, first get yourself to feel, what would it feel like if it were true? If you could believe it, how would that feel? Wouldn't it feel amazing? And I want you to feel that way and then say it. Even though you know it's not true yet. You really don't believe it, but it's what you want to believe. Because you really believe right at this point that I'm worthless or whatever it is. Okay? And so the more emotion behind what you say, the faster you can reprogram. The reprogramming process goes much quicker. Does that make sense? All right? So that explains, Rocky, why people do affirmations and why they work. Okay, because eventually it reprograms the subconscious. All right? Okay. Good. Good. He says, you didn't get lost. It was what you were trying to get to, and I understood it, okay? All right, well, that's going to conclude tonight's session. All right, so tomorrow we're going to try to get to, okay, I don't have a schedule. Anybody have a schedule in their hand? Give it to me. I don't know why mine is not up here, but anyway. All right, so tomorrow, tomorrow we do have the marketplace and check-in open in the morning. We're going to be doing what we call family day picnic and mikvah and group photo, etc. Also, those of you doing the Pidyon Haben, the redeeming of the firstborn, we'll be doing that tomorrow. Over at Chester Frost Park, where we're doing the mikvah. Billy, we did not put any papers out for that, did we? Oh. All right. If you come here first in the morning, or you can just look it up on your phone in Hickson, all right? In Hickson, Tennessee, which is just kind of a part of Chattanooga, sort of extended, okay, is a place called Chester Frost Park. All right, you can go ahead. It's on Golden Circle, something or other like that. So, yeah, if you come back tonight for family time after 8 o'clock, 8:30. What time do we have family time? 8:30, we'll have copies. I'll also have them out here in the morning. If you come for registration or if you come to when the marketplace at 9 o'clock between 9 and 10, we will have copies out here, okay? I'll put the directions out here for Chester Frost Park. Now, we do expect that the weather is going to be kind of miserable like it is now up to a certain point. It will be pretty cold. You can change if you're going to go in the water. There is a restroom there. There's a brick building with a restroom. So you can go in there and change. It's supposed to be a picnic, so if you want to bring stuff to eat, okay? Rabbi, it is on the website. All right, so where on the website? Okay, I'm getting notes on the screen here. So it must be on the Passover page. All right, so if you go on the Passover page, there's directions to Chester Frost Park. All right, thank you. That's Tommy typing in for me to tell me what's going on. He's our webmaster. That worked out well. All right, so I'm just trying to pull the weather up on my phone here. Okay, it's on the Passover page. Oh, on the Passover page on the calendar on the right side. Okay. All right, so tomorrow it looks like the rain is actually going to be done by 7 o'clock in the morning. So we probably have clouds. By noon, it'll be around 60 degrees. So it's going to be a little cold, but if you bring appropriate clothing and food and picnic, we still can have a lot of fun in the overcast. I'll be doing counseling with anybody who wants counseling while we're there. And so we're going to try to do the mikvah somewhere around 12 or 1. Around 12 if we can get it in there, if the weather permits us to do that. Okay, so that's tomorrow. Now, actually, wait, I'm doing that Zoom call at 10 till 11. Yeah, I could definitely be there by 12 or 12:30. All right? Anyway, so that's for tomorrow, and we'll enjoy that as well. So I hope you all enjoyed all that. Have a great evening. Be safe. We'll see you tomorrow at the mikvah. All right, blessings, everyone.